Hi guys. So last time we talked about the brachial plexus. This is a video on an extension of the brachial plexus and what the branches in the brachial plexus do after they branch from the M. So to orient you, we'll start at chords. So we've got our lateral cord, our posterior cord, and our medial cord. And then we've got our terminal branches. So our branches again are the musculocutaneous branch, which is C5 and C6 roots, the axillary branch, which is also C5 and C6 roots, the median nerve, which is roots C6 through T1, the radial nerve, which is all of the roots of the brachial plexus C5 through T1. And then we've got the ulnar nerve, which is C8 and T1. So, what does the musculocutaneous nerve do? So for orientation, let's take a look at what it looks like in the arm. Musculocutaneous is this guy right here. Innervates some stuff in the arm, goes through the arm, and ends up in the lateral forearm. So, let's draw that on here. He doesn't have any branches like we said. He doesn't branch at all. He just ends up in the lateral forearm. Then the axillary nerve, the next one, is the nerve of shapes. So the very first thing he does is come out of the quadrangular space. So this is the axillary nerve here. The quadrangular space is a space bound by four muscles. Superiorly, it's bound by the teres minor, and inferiorly, it's bound by the teres major. And on either side, it's bound by the tricep muscles. So if we put that on here, we've got teres minor on top, which I'll say is a little t. We've got teres major on the bottom, big T, and then we've got the long and the lateral heads of the triceps on either side. They're all T's. Then the nerve goes and encircles the humerus. So this is important because if you have some sort of fracture in the arm region, this is the nerve that would probably be injured. And then he ends up in the skin of the lateral deltoid. So just to see that one more time, the axillary nerve comes out of the quadrangular space, encircles the humerus, and then he goes and he ends in the skin of the lateral deltoid. So then the median nerve. Median nerve doesn't give off any branches in the arm, no sensory or motor branches in the arm. First thing it does is passes anterior to the medial epicondyle. So if you fracture the anterior part of your medial epicondyle, then you know that anything on this part of the nerve is not going to work, so you won't have those functions, either sensory or motor. So after he passes anterior to the medial epicondyle, he passes through what's called the bicipital aponeurosis, and then he has two branches. One of them is the anterior interosseous nerve, the AIN you might hear it called. Now the medial nerve is the nerve that innervates the flexor compartment of the forearm. So this anterior interosseous nerve goes deep and does the deep compartment of the flexor forearm. And then this is more superficial. This part does the superficial part of the flexor forearm. So after those guys happen, then he goes through the carpal tunnel, I'll just label as CT, and he has two more branches. One of them goes to the fingers, and one of them goes to the thumb. The one that goes to the thumb is called either the thenar branch or the recurrent branch of the median nerve. So to review, we've got the median nerve, which doesn't do anything really in the arm, and then goes through, passes anterior to the medial epicondyle, and then goes through the bicipital aponeurosis and branches into a deep and a superficial branch. The deep branch is the anterior interosseous nerve, and the superficial branch is this one here that goes to the superficial muscles, and both of them do the flexor forearm. So then, after that, he travels through the carpal tunnel, which is this guy here, and he has two branches. One of them that goes to the fingers, It's still the median nerve, and the other one, which is called the recurrent branch or the thenar branch of the median nerve that goes to the thumb. Now, radial nerve is next. The radial nerve also has a relationship with the quadrangular space, but it dips below the quadrangular space. It does not go through it. And he does some stuff in the arm that we'll talk about later, but he doesn't actually branch until after he passes anterior to the lateral epicondyle. And I just want to remind you that if you're trying to chase this on your arm while we're doing this or something, that you want to be with your hand up. So the lateral epicondyle is closer to your thumb. So after he goes anterior to the lateral epicondyle, the radial nerve has two branches, a deep and a superficial branch. Now the deep is actually called the deep radial nerve, and the superficial branch can be called either the superficial radial nerve or the radial nerve. Now the deep radial nerve continues on and becomes the pin, or the posterior interosseous nerve. Now this is similar to the median nerve, because they both have the word interosseous in them. Now interosseous means between the bone, right? So it doesn't go to bones. These nerves don't go to bones, but when you think of that, you think that the bone is deeper than the muscle, right? So both the posterior interosseous nerve of the radial nerve and the anterior interosseous branch of the median nerve go deep. Radial nerve goes to the deep extensors, and the anterior interosseous nerve goes to the deep flexors. So the radial nerve comes down and innervates some stuff in the arm, we'll talk about that, and passes anterior to the lateral epicondyle, and then he splits into a superficial and a deep branch. You can see here this is the deep branch that becomes the pin, and then this is the superficial branch of the radial nerve. Okay, two branches, not too bad. Now finally we have the ulnar nerve that gives off no branches in the arm. It doesn't do anything in the arm. The first thing it does is pass posterior. The only one that passes posterior. You can remember this by U and P makes up. Ulnar nerve goes posterior to the medial epicondyle. So you've got two nerves around the medial epicondyle, the median and the ulnar nerves. Okay, the median goes anterior to the medial epicondyle and the ulnar goes posterior to the medial epicondyle. So then the ulnar nerve gives off three branches. The first is the dorsal cutaneous branch. And as we'll talk about, cutaneous usually means skin, so this will be cutaneous to the hand. And then it goes through something called Guillon's canal, which is superficial to the carpal tunnel on the same side. And after it goes through Guillon's canal, it gives off two branches. One of them is the deep ulnar nerve, and the other is just the ulnar nerve, and it goes to the fingers. And to recap, the ulnar nerve doesn't do anything in the arm, so you don't have to worry about it. He goes posterior to the medial epicondyle. Then he gives off a dorsal cutaneous branch. Then he continues on, and he gives off both a deep branch and a superficial branch. It goes to the fingers. So the musculocutaneous nerve and the axillary nerve don't give off any branches. The median, the radial, and the ulnar nerves all give off branches and all have both a deep and a superficial branch, and a couple other ones as well.